We weren't on camera with that last statement for some reason. Sorry,
Doesn't matter. I have lots of golden ones you can lose.
I should have asked you for pre-roll.
No, what was I talking about?
What were we just talking about?
I don't know.
So the part of that was, you didn't even mention Daphne. That's okay, Daphne is passing away as well after the period.
Yeah.
But thank you, that's very
Excuse me.
Bray Manor is next, down the chip downtown.
Just a minute, I want to mention one production done by Pierre Dagenet's group, L'Equipe, probably in about 47, 48. I'd have to refer to find out to it. That actually Herbie Whittaker directed, and it was Shaw's Arms and the Man in French. And Yvette Brandamour was in that, and Guy Moffett, I think Gilles Pelletier, I'm not sure, Nini Durand, of course, and it was a superb production. And Herbie doesn't speak French, you know, so he had to be helped through this by Pierre and so on. But it was a wonderful production. I mean, it's the first time I had a look at a group, professional group like that, and it was really very exciting. And directed by Herbert Whittaker. Il n'est pas français, so I mean, what can you do? So, just maybe I had the year here. I don't know. I don't think so. Pierre, I don't. Well, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
The Bray Manor, I think we were talking about. A lot
Yeah.
of folks went down there.
By the way, it's not called the Bray Manor. It's just Bray Manor. It's Bray Manor Playhouse. You know, Phil and Madge, as I mentioned before, had worked for MIT. Had founded the school in 1932, and Phil had been supervising producer during the war and so on. And then they had their eye on, on setting up their own shop. So they did. Madge's mother had given them a house as a wedding present out in Knowlton, Quebec, about 70 miles out of Montreal in the Eastern Townships, and it was a lovely old house. And they divided it. They had their own house behind it, and they left the big house for actors. So everybody lived there, and everybody ate there, and so on. And then they built the playhouse at the back. I went there in 1948. I'd been with the Bank of Montreal for a couple of years, and doing very well as a teller, etc. And been moved around by the bank, and I decided to leave and go and do the summer at Knowlton. And everybody told me I was mad because I would have made a very good banker, you see. Well, too bad. So I went out to Knowlton, excuse me, and John Colikas went out to Knowlton. John and I had met when we did the Barretts, because John came in later when we did it for the festival. He replaced somebody else. So John and I were together out there to play the juvenile leads that summer. I got on very well with Phil and Madge, and so they did 8 productions, about 7 or 8 productions a year. That year was particularly good because we did things like The Rivals. Funnily enough, Phil had cast a French-Canadian, Gélina, anyway, what was his name? Paul Gélina, to play a Falkland. I mean, this is restoration comedy, right? So I'm playing Jack Absolute, and Falkland, my sort of cohort and buddy, is being played by a French-Canadian who can't handle restoration comedy. You know, it's very difficult, man. So I said, this is impossible. We cannot do this. So, okay, we made a change. And Jean de Savoie, who was also another very strong lady from the MRT over the years, Jean said, she's Scottish, right? So Jean said, I know just the lad to bring out. So she tore back to Montreal and she brought out someone called Christopher Plummer. I said, well, I know him because of the Asmodee thing. So Chris played Falkland, and it was the opening night when he came out. We opened tonight, and he came out in the afternoon. So we had one kind of run through with him holding the script, and this is dynamite. So Phil said, look, Chris, you go on, carry the script, I'll make an announcement, and you do that. He said, no, I'm not doing that. It's very unprofessional, I'm not going to do it. Okay, so we all geared up, and we went on. Chris, no script. And so when he entered Jack Absolute's chambers, in came Falkland with the wigs. It's hot summer, right? We got all powdered wigs on, I think. And he got out one line and he blew. Of course, I mean, he just froze, sort of thing. And the prompter said, he couldn't get the line, so finally he said, the hell with it. So he walked over to the prompter and said, what's the line, dear? Thanks, right. And he walked right back. How do we get in? Everybody broke into applause. I mean, he obviously didn't have the line. What was he going to do? So, and then after the show, of course, we somehow staggered through that whole thing. And then we rehearsed that night, rehearsed the next day, and it was fine for the rest of the run, But it was really, that's the plumber flair, you know. No bullshit. He'll come out there and he'll just do it. So give me the problem. Let's fix it now, you know. It was great. That was directed by Malcolm Morley, and Herbie Whittaker designed and painted the front drop, the curtain we used, the 4 scenes and so on. It was fun. It was Phil Sadler acted in that himself, and Marty Whitmore. It was a good cast. We had a lot of fun with that. That's the only time I worked with Malcolm Morley. Malcolm, hands in the pocket, saying, "I don't think we should play that over there." Yeah, no. There. He then went on to CRT to set that up from the Canadian Stage Society. Became the Canadian Repertory Theatre in Ottawa with Millie Hall and Bruce Raymond and so on. And let's see, it was Dick Easton went up there. But anyway, Chris Plummer went up there. He took Chris up there, and Malcolm Morley did. And Malcolm was he ran it for a few years, and then he sort of got into trouble there. He fired Chris because Chris was very undisciplined, was drinking a fair amount and so on, and being, as they say, very naughty, you know. So Malcolm's old school, and I said, "I'm not having this rubbish. Out, you're fired." So of course there was such a hue and cry from all the audience. Says, "What do you mean you fired this guy? He's a brilliant actor. What are you doing?" You know? So I had to bring him back. Had to eat crow and bring him back. He was actually, they did The Glass Menagerie up there, and he played the son Tom that Sylvia Narzano played with us. I'm not sure if Millie played Amanda. I think she probably did. But Malcolm then sort of faded from the scene after that. You know, they had a triumvirate who was it Sam Payne, Millie, and somebody else. They ran. Was it Bruce Raymond? And yeah, I think it was Bruce. They ran the CRT for a while. Did I get off the track?
No.
Excuse me. I'm trying up.
I'd heard somewhere that Amelia Hall was down in the Bremen.
Bremen. Oh, sure. Millie came down and played there. She was in the wonderful production they did. Never saw it. Before my time, the year 1947, of The Little Foxes, and that had Leo Ciceri in it, had Kolikos in it, had Sylvia Narzano in it. Extraordinary cast when you think back on it. And Phil was in it, Phil Sadler. So Phil directed, I think, yeah. And it was a powerful, powerful drama. Everyone said, "Oh my God, you didn't see The Little Foxes," you know. Occasionally that would happen at Bray Manor. Just the group that came together, they may go out to take their holiday. Somebody who's working in a bank would take 2 weeks and go and play in a couple of shows at Bray Manor and then come back into town. So the odd time you get something that really it was outstanding, you know, and that was one.
Did you spend the whole summer there, by the way?
Yeah, it was that we did 8 shows, I think, or 9 shows. 9 shows, I think.
Well, it's still the worst man of the townships.
Yeah, and then the next year, 49, I went out there, I think only for 3 weeks. I did, I think, 3 plays out there.
Robertson Davies was one of the several guest directors.
Yeah, never worked with Rob there, no.
Did you by the way?
Sorry?
Yeah, please, go ahead. You were saying?
Oh, no, I was saying, I never worked with...
Davies there, but...
No, but I did his Eros at Breakfast at MRT, the studio production. We did 3 one-act plays overlaid. Hope Deferred that Leo Ciceri was in, and we did Eros at Breakfast that I played Linden. Excuse me. And Rob Davis and Brenda, they came to the opening. We chatted about it and so on, and it was fun. It was quite a success. The big success with Eros at Breakfast was a production they did at Ottawa with the Ottawa Drama League with Millie playing Hepatica, and they took it to the Edinburgh Festival. And Philip Hope Wallace, drama critic and so on for the Observer then, I think, or Manchester Guardian, and he said that she was something like a little gem of dramatic something or other. I mean, she was really terrific. She's about this high, you know, she's so wonderful. So Rob Davis was very, very pleased about that. I've met him several times at Herbie Whittaker's and other things, you know, other times socially, but I never actually sort of worked with him. I just did one of his plays.
And Malcolm Morley, you mentioned?
Malcolm, yeah, just the one time with the Rivals. Excuse me, I'm drying up here. No, the other one was, who was that? Was Herbie? You know, Herbie only directed me once. I mean, I've known Herbie 50 years, would you believe? And we've worked together, I've photographed him and everything else, but he's never actually directed me except for a dog of a play by J.P. Priestley called The Linden Tree that he did for Trinity because he wanted to have something in the festival, the Dominion Drama Festival for Quebec. And I played a spiv, you know what I mean? I was a son, a bit of a spiv. And it was a dog of a play, not a terribly good cast, including myself, totally miscast for that. And he didn't know what to do with it. It was, I don't know why, but it fell flat. And he was very unhappy because the Stuart Burge, I think his name was, who was the adjudicator from England, he sort of picked on it, and Herbie wrote about it later saying, well, it's all Gilbert's fault. He didn't know how to carry it, which is nonsense. But anyway, Herbie didn't like to be criticized, do any of us. Excuse me, have to cough. Sorry about that. Joking, Toronto water.
You'd think I was chugging under the top.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. No, no.
Yes, okay, we'll get back to... Let's talk about Doreen Lewis right now, please.
Okay, Doreen, she was the first person I met at MRT, the new supervising director. She'd been production manager when Mildred Mitchell was supervising producing. Doreen was an English teacher, Montreal High School. In fact, I think Plummer was in her class. And she was a champion swimmer. She was going to be in the Olympics of all things. She got pneumonia or something and had to miss it. Anyway, whatever it was, she turned up at MRT. And she'd been around, I think, with the Lakeshore Players and something else. She'd been involved with them before. But at MRT, she was the supervising producer. And Doreen was meticulous. I mean, she was a wonderful gatherer up of props, furniture, materials, and she could sort of con everybody into anything, practically, of donating things. You know, she was very, very proficient. A lot of people found it too proficient. A lot of people found it too pernickety about various things and that. But I loved her. I got on very well with Doreen. She was great. And I think that was one of the reasons why she asked me to come and work there. Because when I came back from 1948 in the fall from Bray Manor, I was out of a job, having given up the bank and that wonderful career. So what was I going to do? And Doreen said, well, Norma Darling is leaving as secretary-treasurer, who kind of ran the office kind of thing. Do you want to do that? I said, I don't know anything about it. Okay, I'll fill in. So I did it for 2 years. And so I became much closer to Doreen and to Virginia, her friend who was a costume designer, sometime actress. And so Hans Behrens, the set designer, painter, Joe Fowler, the handyman, terrific guy. So we were kind of a tight-knit group there for quite a long time. And I stopped working backstage because I think I did about 4 productions, and I got a cough again. Excuse me, I have to stop. God.
Who lived to Bunny Barons? Who lived to Bunny Barons?
No. Hans Behrens was a different spelling, B-R-E-N-D-S, and he was Dutch. When MRT was collapsing, Doreen left. When she resigned, Virginia left, Hans left, Joe Fowler, unfortunately, was fired by Jean de Savoie, and that finished his life. He drank himself to death, and so did Hans Behrens. Hans came up to the Royal Alex, painted scenery for the National Ballet and various things, and then he drank himself to death. You know, they lived for the MIT and for Doreen. Doreen, you know, Joe Fowler would have had himself nailed to the cross for Doreen. So there was a very strong bond there between all those people. I was part of that. And then when I moved up and was put onto the board of directors and then the executive committee and so on. Get that phone? MRT.
So yes, obviously you're moving up into
well,
internal organization as it's.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't falling apart. It was quite solid. I mean, Martha Allen always wanted people to work backstage and be part of the workers as well as acting and becoming a little limelight. And we have to do our pay our penance. We have to do our duty first and be backstage workers and work on props or whatever it is. And I'd done that, and I was playing small parts, and I played leads and so on. And as I said, then went on to the board because they thought I had something to contribute, and then the executive committee. We're having financial problems, we always did. And Doreen and I wanted to change. We wanted to make it a professional theater. And so we laid out, spent a lot of time laying out and working out a whole program to make this financially viable and so on. And we presented it to the board, which I was a member, of course, and they weren't interested. Most of those people, they were businessmen, and they didn't want to get hung up with something that was professional. Amateur theater was sort of fun. You did it as a kind of a volunteer thing. It was okay. You sort of stepped in, and wasn't it nice to go to an opening night and say hello to everybody? But culture, in those days, I mean, what was his name? Charlie Knowles was a chartered accountant, and Charles, what did he want to be involved with the professional theater for? Arthur Rowland. His wife was a sometime actress, Lillian, but Arthur was president and so on. Why did he want to be involved with a professional theater? That's a different ballgame. This is a whole other tact and direction to take. So they turned it down. And well, shortly after that, Doreen resigned, and I said thank you, goodbye. And I resigned, and we all just kind of, and that was the beginning of this kind of collapse. It was just too bad because MRT had risen to a level of, shall I say, more than semi-professional in their productions. Because Doreen had seen to that. She wasn't going to have tacky amateur church basement productions. Believe you me, no. The Barretts, the Heiress, you could drop those shows in anywhere, and they'd say, oh God, this is professional. Sure it is. From the caliber, the acting, the direction, the sets, the costume, everything. I mean, Virginia's costumes are a knockout. I mean, just beautiful. So they were ready to become professional. We had moved up, there we were, and now the next step, logically, is to be a professional company. When that didn't work, clunk, and then they screwed around and went from bad to worse, and meetings, collapse, people got to save it, people writing in, people donating dollars. And they staggered on and played in high schools. Charlie Rittenhouse made sure that they had these school stages were available. They played at Van Horn, they played in TMR and so on. And they staggered on. Gina Salvo rode in on a white horse a few times and rode out again. They hired a professional business manager called Patricia Coe from England. She lasted 1 year. She was a disaster. They fired her. They brought another guy, Ray Cunnington, sometime writer sort of thing. And Ray lasted, I think, about a year or so, and then Ray was gone. He said, I didn't think the deficit was as much as it was. They tried different presidents. They tried all kinds of, and it never really found itself again. Bruce Raymond came in at the end as supervising producer under a professional setup. Semi-professional, Bruce came in. Then they turned it professional then. It was too late. The people were gone. The times had changed, I don't know, had they done it when Doreen and I were there? I mean, it may have taken off, it may have done well, it may have moved to Toronto. I don't know, but that's all history. Who knows now? It's just all faded and gone. But Doreen was wonderful. I mean, she really kept everything humming and professional standards all the way through. Everybody had to do this to keep up to Doreen's standards. Great.
Yeah, just forgot my question here. Oh, yeah.
It's all right.
Thanks.
I forgot my answer. Before you asked the one you forgot.
Yeah.
You talk about a small stage, by the way. Someone said, I don't know where this came from, 19 by 15. Maybe it was an MRT. I always thought of it as 20 by 20, but it doesn't matter, give or take a few feet. It was tiny, small, And so when the curtains came back, by the way, those curtains came from Ravenscrag, right? And they were with the fleur-de-lis on and so on. Now, I can't remember if they're gold with red fleur-de-lis or red curtain with gold fleur-de-lis, one or the other. And stage crew had to kind of pull it all in as it came out, as it was pulled back, you see, because there's no space. We needed every inch. And it was tight playing space, and people right here in front of you, it's fine. I mean, you just adapt to it. Someone said, how did you find it? What challenges? What do you mean challenge? You're an actor, get on and do it. I mean, the one up at the Mountain Playhouse, I mean, you think that was a big stage? That was dinky too. We did reviews up there. I didn't, but I mean, they did reviews. I only did one production at the Mountain Playhouse, in the old ski chalet and so on, and that was Claudia, with Corinne Conley and Jack Creeley and I, and Charlie Lewis, God bless him. He used to have something called the Montreal Drama Guild many years ago, did Golden Boy with Leo Cicery, very good. Anyway, the Mountain Playhouse was Joy Thompson's baby. She had CAT, Canadian Art Theatre, for years. Kolikoff started there playing Little Black Sambo and things like that. They all played this at, would you believe today, don't accept those words, but there it was. And they did that at Victoria Hall. There was Violet Bussey and Dorothy Walters. They did the Children's Theatre there. They may still be doing it, I don't know, because they went for 1,000,000 years. Saturday morning, excuse me, Children's Theatre. Let's see,
It was the
go.
school I wanted to get to.
Mhm.
Who
Which school?
started it? The MRT school.
Mm.
Who started it when? What happened to it? Who restarted it? That whole
Well, I think I said that before, though. Phil Sadler and Madge were brought in really by Martha to start a school because they've been attached to this school in Boston, the Leyland Power School. And the Leyland Power School for the Spoken Word. Can you believe what a title? They started the school in 1932, and that ran until the war, and then it sort of faded away. That was the end of that. Everybody disappeared. Started up again in 1946 by Doreen Lewis, not by Phil. Phil was out at Knowlton. And so Doreen started it with Bobby as sort of head of the school, and various people coming in to teach and so on. And I joined, of course, I was there my first year, and I came in there, and we did productions in 1947, like The Long Christmas Dinner and so on, Thornton Wilder's thing. Excuse me, let me look, because I got me school. No, specifically, I think that was the only, we did Dear Octopus for the school, 1948, and that was with Yvette Brandamore, myself, and others. Those were the only two school productions I did. But school was very good. We all had to pay for it. Hans taught stagecraft. Herbert Rose taught makeup. Marie Staley, who ran the Community Players Library, she talked about history of theatre. Her husband was a professor of German at McGill. I don't know. It was kind of good. I don't quite know where it went after that. I think it sort of staggered on. But as one started to play more and more and more, I mean, I wasn't going to the school. I mean, I was in acting and working. So I kind of lost a little track of that.
They call it learning on the job, I think. This quote here, which I have no idea what it is. While there can be no doubt that standards have slipped badly, that commercialism and raises ugly head and madness is still
Yeah, I see that. It doesn't make any sense. I say, well, probably. What am I going to say? I don't know who said it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
quote from 1951 article MRT. Okay.
That's out of Vancouver, yeah.
Check.
All right.
I got nothing to say about it, yeah.
Oh yeah, 51. I saw somewhere an ad for the Montreal RMRT playing at West Hill High School or something like that. And here's a question saying...
That's not touring locations. That's disaster time when they're filling in with Charlie Rittenhouse's schools. Yeah, West Hill, Van Horn, TMR. This is what they got nowhere else to play. No home. This is before they got into Clossy Street, right, just behind the firm. And then that never really worked well. They poured some money, about $8,000. They got a special grant, I think partly from the City of Montreal, and partly from, not Canada Council, but something like that in Ottawa. They got a chunk of money. They put it into redesigning building the stage and doing this kind of thing. And I don't know that ever really worked successfully.
Mm-hmm. Which logically suggests the whole fire story.
The fire on 1550 Guy Street, yeah. Well, the last major production in there, I starred in that. It was You Never Can Tell by George Bernard Shaw. I played it was the waiter role that everyone plays here at Niagara on the Lake. It was Stanley Holloway they brought out to play that. It was a lovely production, directed by the stage manager at MRT for years, Lee Prime. Lee did several productions very, very well. He was a bachelor. He worked for a law office and so on as a male secretary, I think. And but Lee was very good and had a good eye. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting dry again. It's all right. 1 sec. Anyway, put together a very good production of You Never Can Tell. That was the last major production there. And the very final production was a studio production called The Enchanted, directed by Franz Kramer, who was basically an actor. And Franz had Bill Shatner in that, actually, the only time he was in anything for MRT. And that was an absolute disaster. I mean, a total piece of rubbish from top to bottom. And the fire came right after that. Whether it was, a party afterwards and someone dropped a cigarette on the sofa, nobody really knows. Doreen told me back in '81, she said, well, later it came out that some cop, Montreal Police Force, confessed to having set the fire. He was an arsonist or something, and he'd set other fires. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could find that in the paper. I don't think so. And it would all sort of phased away. I mean, who knows? That was just a story. I don't know.
You were a young guy at the time. It didn't matter to you. Like you're a young kid and don't know what's next. It doesn't really matter, right?
What about the fire, you mean?
You figure MRT'd find some new location.
No. Major disaster for everybody connected with that place. I mean, there were students in the School of the Theatre who were standing opposite the next morning in tears in the snow and the slush, and this is burned down March the 5th, 1952, and they're all standing there in tears. Here it was, just smoldering ruins. And boy, it really hit everybody. Everybody was just sort of really shaken up by this. I have some of the photographs that were rescued, slightly singed from the fire and things afterwards. By the way, there are a few other women. Community theatre, amateur theatre in Canada, right across the country. It was really a story of the strong women who ran it. Right, men forget it. They can come in and dance out as actors, but they didn't run it. You can have your presidents, males and businessmen and so on. They're kind of for money, but they didn't run it. The women ran it, the Dorothy Whites, out in where it was, and here Nancy Piper in Toronto. There you have Mildred Mitchell. You've got, of course, Martha Allen, Mildred Mitchell, Roberta Beatty, Doreen Lewis. You've got Beatrice Monroe Brown, who ran the magazine, the Q, and so on. A staunch person. She was there for years, keeping things together. She was writing to Miles Mallison, the playwright and actor, and so on, to ask him could he suggest to find directors and people to take over things. She was in touch with Tom Patterson at Stratford to try to get something happening from somebody there to come into MRT to keep it going. She's wonderful, Beatrice Monroe Brown. Marie Staley in the library. I mean, they're all staunch women. I mean, for the most part, strong women. And it was more than just something for them to do. They wanted to make something happen in the community, And the men really didn't want to get involved. This is not professional. I mean, we don't, this is acting? What? In those days, I mean, you're an actor. You must be homosexual, right? And everything must be wrong with you. But they didn't take the responsibility. The women took the responsibility. Your Dora Maver Moores here for the New Play Society. I mean, they ran it, and they were terrific. In fact, my book, I dedicate to the women of Montreal and right across the country who ran these community theaters, these amateur theaters. I mean, this is where all our actors and writers, they all sort of came out of these roots,
Norma Springfield, you mentioned, or I did.
Yeah, Norma was, I never really worked with Norma. I'd known her for a long time. Her husband, Bill, was a lighting guy, and Norma really, she took over when Joy Thompson got bored with Mountain Playhouse and sort of dropped it. Norma took it on, kept it going for a few years, and she was not exactly the easiest person in the world to work with. She was sort of prickly, and so there were always problems with Norma. Then she sort of disappeared into Concordia, teaching in the theater department and so on. And then when she died, I went to her funeral actually in Montreal, and saw a couple of old faces I hadn't seen for a long time, including Bill, her husband, who was in a wheelchair and so on. But Myron Galloway was there. Myron Galloway was a director. Myron was, he was from Halifax originally. He directed so the studio productions very well. He did Aria da Capo, which was a big one for him. Suzanne Yvonne, John Colicos, myself. That was a big hit with the festival too, because the Dominion Drama Festival, because we got terrific mentions from the adjudicator and so on. And it was a very popular show. It was very something quite different, and it was just a brilliant piece, And Myron had directed that. Then he did another studio production, No Exit, the Huis Clos, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Pierre Dagenet had directed the first production of that outside of France, or certainly first North American production of it in French. And Jean-Paul Sartre was there on opening night. And Pierre had Yvette Brandamour playing lesbian, and Roger Gassot played the homosexual, the coward, and Gilbert, I think her name was, Margot Gilbert. Anyway, she played the other sort of nymphomaniac. Later she committed suicide, which is very sad because she's quite a talented girl. Anyway, when MRT did it, in the English translation, there's No Exit. Myron Galloway directed it, and again he had Yvette Brandamour playing the same part she played before it. Suzanne Yvonne, Suzanne, who played in the Eros of Breakfast, not Eros of Breakfast, the Aria da Capo, she played in it, and Franz Kramer played, he just, was one of the prisoners of war here in Canada, from Europe. I shouldn't say prisoners of war, internees. They were sent from England. Jewish refugees that were sent over to Canada and put into a camp in Montreal, right? Outside of Montreal. So Johnny Newmark, a talented pianist, all these wonderful talents that came out of that, and some of them stayed. Eric Koch in Toronto here, CBC, now retired. They're all part of this group. Anyway, Franz Kramer played in that No Exit, and Tim Whalen, who was a Welsh actor, he played in it. It was a very fine production, and I think Pierre was upset that they didn't ask him to direct it, because since he'd already done it and done it so well, he could have done it again, but for some reason, Myron did it. And did a nice job, though. It's a very, very strong play. And Myron, was it the star? I don't know. I used to know everybody, of course, in the days of the Herald.
Colin Gravenor, my dad. You know Colin Gravenor, my father?
No, you asked me that. No, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, ABC Studios Press Club. Do you ever go to Press Club yourself?
No.
You know, there's other gang like Tim Burke, guys like that.
No.
Think of other newspaper men.
No, I was.
Young then, yeah. I mean, a young boy then.
Well, I knew the. See, Pat Pierce is writing for the Herald. Harold Whitehead. Let me see, of course, then Herbie and there were lots of guys. Duffy wrote for the Standard, the Montreal Standard then those days. No.
He was in town.
Yeah, not Mike Duffy. No. No, he never wrote for them. What the hell was his name? There's an actor, Jack Duffy. There's Mike Duffy, and then there's the other one, Robert Duffy. Robert Duffy, I think it is. He's in England. Went to England after that. The writers who wrote the Star. Oh, it was Sid Johnson. I interviewed Sid. Sid Johnson he used to be ballet, and Sid's interest was really in dance and ballet. And then he became the drama critic when S. Morgan Powell finally kicked the bucket in '91 or something. You know, he controlled all the art columns at the Montreal Star. And they let him do it. The O'Connells let him do it. Anyway, so finally when S. Morgan out of the way, Sam Morgan was gone, Sidney became the drama critic, and Eric took all music, you know, Eric McLean. Yeah.
Okay. Are we rolling? Great. Yeah, we've already got that.
Myron, I don't know. Myron, I don't know. He stopped directing. I don't know. He did Wild Sunshines there. He did MRT. He did quite a few. He was one I think wasn't too happy about Dory. He thought she was a little too schoolmarmish in the way she ran it as a supervising producer. I don't agree with that, but anyway. But Myron's a good guy. He's very good. We work together well.
Let's see. Tour of the Islands, ridiculous. Right. Dominion Drama Festival.
Yeah.
Regional. Were you ever involved in these projects?
Yeah, sure. Several. Yeah. I mean, the Barris, I say, I won the Best Supporting Actor Award in 1948. The Linden Tree disaster with Herbie was another one. By the way, you know that was started by Lord Tweedsmuir, right? You know, he was the Governor General candidate in 1935. Well, he founded the Dominion Drama Festival with people like Martha Allen. And his son, Viscount Duncannon, Lord Duncannon, he played in 2 MRT productions. Actually, they're co-productions with the Ottawa Drama League. One was Hamlet, and they played that at Moyse Hall at McGill. And the other was Romeo and Juliet. And the Juliet was somebody who became a director at MRT in the latter years, Julia Murphy. She was Julia O'Brien then. But Duncannon was the big attraction was that the Earl of Besborough, Governor General of Canada, designed the sets for both of those productions. Yeah, and which is quite extraordinary. Think of a Governor General designing sets. But he had his own theatre in Stansted, Sussex. You know, he had his own theatre there. Yeah, he used to hire actors and design the sets, and he loved it. So when he came here, he was John Buchan, writer, right? So he continued his interest in theatre by Ottawa Drama League and MRT, just for those 2 co-productions, sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. Here's regionalism and sectionalism. There seems to be a theme.
Sectionalism? What?
Sectionalism
No.
and regionalism. English-speaking theatre groups and conversely theatre-goers are much too prone to accept the fierce...
I didn't get any of that, by the way. It's a quote somewhere. I don't know what the hell it's all about.
I know, and they're also ascribing a certain singularity of mind to an audience.
I don't...
I think we'll have to let it go.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Cool, but okay, let's just say the Montreal scene in the early 50s. We're talking about a time that is now pictured as sort of the jumping gay Paris of North America, which is obviously...
Jumping gay Paris? Oh, that's very different. Never heard of that one. Go on.
You know, the sort of the nightclub philosophy and the bootleggers' fortunes. And
well, that was late 40s too. I mean, that was late 40s. I mean, all the judges were up to a little bribery. Not all. Mustn't say that. Not all. Some. You know, people would drive their Cadillacs and go over to the parking lot at the Blue Bonnet racetrack, and then they'd be taken off by mafia types into gambling dens and places like that up north and so on. There was lots of that going on. I mean, you know, it was Pacific Plant, right, who finally blew the whistle on all of this, and he padlocked the joints, and very unpopular, of course, but he was the one who started the cleanup. He said, this is enough, you know, Sin City, this is Montreal, and we're going to change that. And he did. I mean, all the brothels down on Delorme, no, what was the street? Can't think right now. Anyway.
No.
No.
I'm dying to know where these things were.
Can't tell you, but anyway. I tell you, in those days, though, the places like Café de l'Est in East Montreal were really jumping. I went there, of course, with Yvette Brandemour and Suzanne Yvonne. They introduced me to a lot of this French-Canadian culture, and it was wonderful. You had people like Edith Piaf come there, and it was just terrific. Everyone was so excited by performers. I mean, everyone was very closely knit. It was, a lot of smoking going on. I mean, it was just part of the time. Then you had the rather antiseptic theatre like Jeju Hall, which of course is owned by the Jesuits, or not the Jesuits, the priests. And they used to let Father Legault in there because he used to like to come because he never paid rent, right? He didn't have to pay rent for his little performances, which is gave him a leg up on us at MRT. Father Legault I met a few times, but he smiled a lot, but I never knew anything about him really. I mean, except that certain people didn't care for him too much, like Pierre Dagenet and so on.
He was based where, by the way?
Who? Legault?
Compagnon.
Saint Laurent. I mean, that was Les Compagnons de Saint Laurent.
Yeah, was Saint Laurent, you mean?
Yeah, the suburb. It's where the old film board is. Not the old film, but the film board is there. They built that there. Mistake. We should have built it in Toronto. Anyway, that was a political bone at the time. But no, Montreal was lively. Camille Hanoud was the mayor, and he was an amazing man. He came to our 21st anniversary at MRT. And in a photograph I have of him with Virginia Watt and Christopher Plummer, we did a production of The Infernal Machine by Jean Cocteau and La Machine Infernale, and there were problems with Chris. There were problems all around. I was on the executive committee and I wasn't going to take part in this, but Doreen and the others persuaded me to play a smaller role in that, so I did. I played one of the soldiers with Richard Easton and John Gibbon. we took part in it because it was an anniversary production, we should. But also I was co-host of the evening with Dr. Cyril F. James, head of McGill. We were co-hosting this whole thing. So I came off stage and changed quickly into a black tie, etc. And out there saying, how do you do and how nice and wonderful and so on. Anyway, Camille Hanoud came, and in this photograph, Virginia swears that he was pinching her rear end as he was standing there next to her. He liked women, girls. But anyway, it was quite an evening. He was an amazing guy, Camille Hanoud. I mean, so tied into Duplessis and all the corruption of the whole province, and yet he was always returned and very popular everywhere. Now, Camille, they loved him.
Sort of latter-day Lucien, I think. Other notable folks in the audience, would there be the buzz backstage when certain types of people in the audience, say hockey players, Maurice Richard, or I don't know.
Never came.
No.
To MRT?
Other famous characters?
Maurice Richard's going to come to MRT. For what? No. No, there would be a buzz when someone like Massey came, Vincent Massey and that kind of thing, but other than that, no. If there's the odd theatrical person in town, no, not really. There was never much of that. You had a steady membership, I mean, the odd person might come in who would be like Betty Wilson coming up from New York. Oh, Betty Wilson's here tonight, that sort of thing. Because she was playing she played a Medea with Judith Anderson. Judith Anderson had her dye her hair a different color because she wasn't going to have somebody there with the same color hair. Judith Anderson wanted to play it in New York bare-breasted. And nobody had the courage to let her do that. She would have done it. Wonderful actress. Woo! Judith Anderson, fantastic. She did it later, by the way, in another production of Medea. And the Medea was Zoe Caldwell, the Australian actress who was at Stratford and so on. And she's a wonderful actress. And Judith Anderson took part in that, and she played the old nurse because she wanted to be part of another production of the Medea.
I have a name here of Mildred Mitchell.
Mm-hmm. Another of the great strong women of MRT. Professional actress, American. She came to Montreal. She married a guy called William Ray, W-R-A-Y, who had the big funeral home in Montreal. And she had also played at the Princess Theatre. That's what she played with Jerry Rowan, with George Alexander, as a professional stock company. And she stayed on in Montreal, and she married William Ray, and somehow drifted into MRT, I guess, through Arthur and so on. And she played in a lot of shows, and she directed them. She was a very efficient director. I was never directed by her. I never really knew Mildred, because when I came in, she'd stopped. When she came back to do some directing, I was gone to Toronto. That was after the fire and everything else. So she came back in to do the very next one after the fire. They did production up at the town of Montreal High School of Harvey, and directed by Mildred Mitchell. And she did several after that. But I had no real connection with Mildred. I just meet her when she'd come in and we'd talk and this kind of thing. But she was liked by actors because she knew what she wanted. She came in, bang, bang, bang. No messing around with Mildred. Zap, you get on with it, you know.
You mentioned earlier someone who, I forget all the details all of a sudden, and I'd like you to remind
All
me
right.
of a future premier who used to work at CBC Radio, that...
Future premier? Who?
René Levesque.
Oh!
Tell me a little bit about this guy.
René Levesque, well, he did Le Point as a journalist when Radio-Canada moved from the King's Hall building on St. Catherine Street after there was an explosion and a bomb and whatever it is. They bought the old Fort Hotel and they renovated that, and then Radio-Canada was in there. And we were always doing on Sunday morning, we'd go in about 10 o'clock to start rehearsals for the Bible show at noon. And René Levesque would be there, either, well, he was recording it, he was doing it live, I guess. He's Le Point. And so we'd kibitz around with him, you know, in the lobby, in the hall there. He's a very nice guy. He's lots of good wartime stories he had and things, you know. But very pleasant guy.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't there a committee that chose plays for the MRT?
Yeah, they varied. They had a play reading committee for the majors and a play reading committee for the studio productions. They all varied. I mean, I remember Myron was on several. Kit Shaw was on it. She was a researcher at the Montreal Star. And as was Mavis Gallant. Then Mavis Gallant, of course, was the star, you know. She was one of the people I talked to about MRT. She had nothing to do with MRT, really, Mavis Gallant. But, Sylvain Arizana was on for a couple of years as a play reader. And Bobby was on it, Roberta Beatty, and so on. I mean, you know, there's something about here, but I don't even, it was sort of, so you make something out of it, and there's nothing really. It's just a group of 3 or 4 people who get together and read plays. Charlie Rittenhouse was part of it. They'd read the plays and suggest with Doreen, and Doreen would have the sort of final say with Bobby as to where they were going, more or less with Bobby.
So it's sort of a play choosing body. I don't think anyone's familiar really with these play committees, the lay people out there, with how the devil is worked.
Well, they would just they would look at a list of plays and pick out some and read them and suggest, yeah, I think that'd be great. I think we can do that. Not too large a cast, not too expensive for this. And can we cast this show? They'd talk, you know, they'd kick it around and say, well, yeah, we could get Mary Douglas to play that. Wow, let's do it, you know, that sort of thing. So it was just, I think all amateur groups had 1 or 2 people who read the plays in the summertime to sort of pick out a season for the fall. Doreen read the plays. Of course, she was on all the committees as supervising producer. But she used to more or less have the final say, and she used to discuss these plays, a selection with Virginia Watt. They shared a house together, apartment, and with Bobby Beatty. They used to go over them, you know.
Okay. Pause tape, please.
But when it came up to do Cymbeline,
Cymbeline. Over again, actually. Give me the whole thing.
At the Open Air Playhouse was this was the little child of Rosanna Seaborn, who was another of those strong theatrical ladies who acted, who directed, and she very much wanted her own way about things. Anyway, she had the Open Air Playhouse situated in a lovely setting, Beaver Lake in Montreal, and she did 3 productions. She did, let me see, Midsummer Night's Dream, she did As You Like It, and she did Cymbeline. And she had Leo Cicery in these, she had Bruce Raymond, she had Myron Galloway was in them, she had Christopher Plummer in a couple, Mary Douglas, Millie Hall. You know, she had very good people out there. Anyway, they were successful. The one she did in 47, I didn't see, The Dream. 48, I was out at Knowlton, so I had nothing to do with it. And the other one, she did the Bourgeois Gentilhomme, but the Les Compagnons did that, but still under the Open Air Playhouse auspices, you know. Cymbeline was quite something, really, because it was directed by Theodore Komisarjevsky, one of the great names in theater anywhere. This Russian who be with Moscow Art Theater and so on. And he was living in Vermont, I think it was, and he had married, I think, something like an 18 or 20-year-old ballet dancer, something. But I think he was in his gaga stage, you know, he's at the end of the rope. Anyway, he came up to direct it for Rosanna. She had met him somewhere in New York, I guess. And I have a photograph of Rita Wheatley, who was doing PR, and publicity for Rosanna, and Komazajewski at the Ritz Hotel in Montreal. And anyway, he came out and directed this, and Chris was playing in it, and Plum had a little story about it that, you know, he said, how am I supposed to play this king? I mean, I can't kind of get a grip on this. And he said to him, you don't have to play it. He said, just think like a king. That's all there is to it. And Chris said it was wonderful, just very simple. He said, and I had the character right there when he said, just think and act like a king. That was it. But Bob Goodyear was in that production too, and he was busy sending people up, including Rosanna, who was also in it. She played Imogen. She always gets a nice part for herself. And Bob used to deliver a big speech to her and cross his eyes, you know, and used to send her out, which is very bad, very naughty. But actors are sometimes. Anyway, that's the Open Air Playhouse, which has nothing to do with MRT, but all these people all play with MRT. We all sort of shifted around, you know.
Nice work if you can get it, and you're trying to get it.
Sure.
Sure. Okay, so...
Well, we weren't paid for it, mind you.
What?
We weren't paid for it.
No.
No one was paid. It's all amateur. Nope. We had terrific actresses around there too, like Mary Douglas, and she was in the Heiress with me, and wow, I mean, they're so good, they're so professional. I mean, just bang on.
Okay. We have that. Did you ever work with Jean-Louis Roux personally?
No.
Or
never met him. Don't know anything about him. Jean Gascon? No. No, I like Denise Pelletier. You know, she and Jean Gascon did the Dance of Death, Strindberg's thing at Stratford. God, were they wonderful. I mean, you know, she was such a fine actress, this Denise Pelletier, Pelletier's sister, you know, she died so young. Great loss, really great loss. But Gascon, no. I never worked with him. It's just one of those things, you know.
Major brought this beautiful girl to his theater in Halifax.
Leon Major? Yeah. Who?
Dubois, or what was her name?
No, it wasn't Diane LeBlanc? No. Yeah, because I worked with her. I know her vaguely. I mean, I worked with her. She was in the show that I did of The Judge. She was the mother in that show. But she's a very good actress, and a good director. She's directed a couple of quite successful shows here in Toronto. There's one playing right now, directed by Diane LeBlanc. And I think it just opened a couple of nights ago. And Fred's read all the reviews, I'm sure. We'll cut that. Anyway,
okay.
Go ahead.
Right, now, primary financial support for actors at the time was CBC Radio, sort of like a lifeline.
Not primary, that's all it was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
A half-hour radio show in those days, back in 46, you got $12.50, right?
Oh.
And then it went up to $17.50. Then eventually it worked to $22.50 and then $25, you know. I think by the time I came to Toronto in the beginning of '53, I think it was about $27.50 or something for a half-hour show. You know, I mean, it was really hard pickings. But of course, your money went around those days too. But I didn't start doing any dramas for CBC until 1948. Collicuss and I both started with Rupert on the Bible show after Bray Manor, summer of '48. And in fact, we came in, and both of us were out of work. So we went and auditioned for Lamont Tilden, CBC Montreal. Monty was the top announcer there, and became the top announcer here in Toronto later. And Monty Tilden had one of those beautiful, pure, wonderful Canadian voices. This is Lamont Tilden speaking. Very clear and just great. And we did the standard audition for him. And he said, no, he's not interested in us doing announcer. He says, you two guys are actors. You're not announcers. And he's quite right. He's absolutely right. We were a little teased off at the time, but he was right.
Sorry. You did Lear. Did we mention this?
Well, the '53, yeah, the big colossal disaster, yes. Bring me the map here. John did a wonderful impersonation, always still does. Sorry?
I thought we were pausing.
No, Collicuss does a wonderful impersonation of Donald Wolfett, of course. And he always did. When Wolfett came in 46, 47, with his company, and he would play 8 roles in 1 week. I mean, major roles. I mean, like Shylock, Richard III, Hamlet, Macbeth, Volpone, you know, all this, and Malvolio. He did it all in 1 week. Extraordinary actor. Everyone said, oh, hammy old Wolfett. He was wonderful in many of these roles. And I'll take a lot of that. Anyway, he always had tacky sets and a lot of tacky actors with him, but look out, I'm the actor, and I'm the star, and I'm the manager, and I own this, okay? So we do it, and watch me. But Collicuss, as a schoolboy, hung over the banister. Actually, he was a waiter. I mean, no waiter. He was an usher. He handed out programs and things. So he used to stand there and drink all this stuff. Every performance of Wolfett up. So he used to amuse us out at the Summer Theatre by taking off Wolfett. But he'd always do that opening. Of course, later he came to play Lear himself. That was one of Wolfett's famous parts. I mean, you know, Every Inch of Lear, written by James Aiken, the reviewer of the time, saying what a great Lear Wolfett is, and he was. And then, I can't do it as well as Calicos. But he said, attend the lords of France and Burgundy, Gloucester. I will, my liege. Yeah. Meanwhile, we'll turn, turn our attention to our darker purpose. Bring me the map there. And then when Cordelia would say, what do you give me? And she'd say, nothing, my lord. Nothing? Nothing, my lord. Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. These things, of course, Calicos had played with these, and it used to send us all up. And of course, when he did them seriously, it was, all these memories are still up there. The sound of Wolfert as Lear, and Calicos as Wolfert as Lear. It's fun. And he was a very good Lear. And so he did a radio production out in Vancouver. John Giuliani produced it, and I taped it. It was very good. They used good sound effects in it, but it was a little drifty. But John was extremely good. He changed his interpretation of Lear quite a bit. He brought it down and had improved it, I think, very well. It's a pity that he wasn't really at Stratford still, right? Because, he didn't go to Stratford initially with Guthrie because Guthrie thought he needed to learn a little humility. Because he'd been, after his Lear performance at the Old Vic, he had been demanding certain roles to play, and Guthrie thought he should be toned down and put in a box. So he didn't ask him to come. He brought Douglas Campbell, he brought the other guy, Michael Bates and so on, to Stratford, and Guinness, of course, but didn't ask Calicos to come. Also didn't ask Plummer, because he turned Plummer down, right? When we auditioned for Guthrie in Montreal High School, we lined up 10 million actors, people hopeful, saying, oh, Stratford, woo, we'll go. And it was a farce. He and I, Chris and I, had rehearsed the tent scene with Eleanor Stewart. I played Brutus, he played Cassius. And we were going to do this for Guthrie. Nope, one at a time. Nobody goes in to do a scene, one at a time. So I walked in first, and there's Guthrie, 10 feet tall. Hello, how are you, dear boy? Yes, what have you done? Shakespeare, good, I beg your pardon, Don't you, there's another actor outside, we'll do a scene for you. No need to, my dear boy, no. And he had Rupert Kaplan with him, of course, who had helped him years before, and Charlie Rittenhouse. So he said, what have you done? I told him what I'd done. He said, thank you very much, we'll be in touch, goodbye. Chris came in next, same thing. Who are you? What have you done? Thank you, goodbye, out. Well, Charlie was never very fond of Christopher Plummer, and neither was Rupert Kaplan, because he misbehaved. He was very attractive to ladies and sucked up all the ladies in view, did Christopher Plummer, and still does. He's an amazing guy. But anyway, so they were always a little jealous and so on of him, thought he was unreliable. So that's a kiss of death, right, for actors, and Guthrie was here. Unreliable, don't want him. So he wasn't asked until 1956 to come. Of course, when he was asked in 56, by then he's made his name with Julie Harris and the Lark and so on. Excuse me. And of course, he's asked to then come and play Henry V, and they take it to the Edinburgh Festival and so on. So by that time, I was in The Rainmaker in London with Sam Wanamaker and Geraldine Page, and down came Chris with Bob Goodyear from Edinburgh, and they all came in to see The Rainmaker, and it was all kind of fun. It was a nice old home week. I got sidetracked. Where'd I go? Where was I before London? Yeah. Oh, Stratford. John went there in '64. Calicos was asked finally there to go with Michael Langham, and he did Coriolanus. He played Ophidius with Paul Schofield, and so on. And he did several productions there. He did a wonderful Lear, apparently, again for Langham. And it's just that they didn't ask him back after a while. He should have been there. He's one of our first-class classical actors. And I think like wasting away, not being used, And he gets cast by CBC in various things, playing, Greek fathers of hockey players. So yes, my son, you plan to play hockey. This is what he's asking to play. When he could be up there, playing Othello, for God, or something. Just Macbeth. When Plummer plays Macbeth, he's not Macbeth. He's Malvolio. He's Benedict. He's not Macbeth, right? They always wanted the guys who play light comedy want to play tragedy and vice versa, but he's not right for it. It's not in him to do it. Carry on, quick, shoot.
Pause tape, please. Can you tell me how would Canadian radio drama have compared to what you saw in Britain?
Well, not saw, heard. BBC Radio. I was brought up in that all during the war, and they were so superb. They had the first-class actors. Of course, any actor in London, you can be on stage, you can be working with BBC Radio, you can be doing motion pictures, all of this because everything is so close. And they have, 200 or 300 years of breeding actors, great actors. I always looked on the BBC as having, the best radio drama in the world, and next would be CBC in my estimation. and that would be Andrew Allen, Essa Young, Rupert Kaplan, all these people here. I don't think Canadians are even aware of that. You know, this is the the basic fiber and lifeblood, if you like, of all the acting and writing in this country. It comes right out of radio. And radio it was very exciting. You had to use your imagination. Now with TVO going digga, you know, and there's so much sitcom rubbish that, you know, people are not being brought up on decent dramatic standards, I don't think. Pity.
Barry Morse was eventually known as the test pattern on TV because he was on so much. But who were on so much on Canadian radio drama? Who were the standbys?
Well, actually, that's not quite true. Barry did a lot of early television because of David Green, who was an English ex-actor, one of the first directors here. And Barry was, David Green would have like a repertory company. I have to cough, sorry. David Green had his wife, Catherine Blake, Lloyd Bachner, Barry Morris, excuse me, sometimes Richard Easton. He had a group of people, Jerry Saraceni. He would use these people over and over again. Every show he did, he had the same people. So everyone got tired of seeing Barry Morris. And of course, CBC always had the way of, if a new face came on the market, they would flog it to death. And that person would be on everything, in everything, and suddenly you don't want to see him again or see her again. Get rid of them. And then suddenly they drop him or her like a hot brick. They don't want to know about you. I mean, you were last week's star. They just sort of write you off, which is too bad. This didn't happen in radio as much, but it happened very often with the visual thing in film and television. But radio, yeah, Barry did a lot of radio for Andrew and so on, but you know, there are a lot of other very well-known actors like your Bud Knapps and Drainey's. I mean, these are great radio actors. I mean, really. Barry was always, you know, English. I've said it there. You know, in his fugitive thing, the Inspector Gerard, I never believed Barry's American accent sort of thing. It seemed all over the place. I just thought it was ugly. But, you know, he did it, so that was that. No, he's a very professional actor. You know, Barry could act practically in anything, and he was always very good at looking for good causes and things, you know. Barry was very versatile, very versatile. In England, playing a, you know, a Nazi and something to do with the Second World War or so on. And then he'd be back here doing something in Shakespeare, you know. He's fine. He's very, very good. But, you know, there are lots of other actors around, too.
Who are you talking about?
Pierre? Yeah, just a minute.
Pierre who?
Dagenet.
He did what?
I'm trying to see the year. I don't see it here. Wait a minute. Pierre Bermuda. Bermuda was Bruce York. And somebody else. I was asked to go down there too. I think it was 1953, and I couldn't because of the King Lear we were doing at the Montreal festivals, and also the Stratford I turned down that first year. Bruce York ran this quite successful theatre down there, and he used to get people who were just slightly out of fashion. I mean, your Edward Everett Hortons and people like that who would come and play in this theatre. Totally professional. Chris went down there for a couple of years, and that's when he met up with a lot of people and who were interested in trying to straighten him up, because those are the days that Chris would go down and he'd walk away and never take anything with him, leave all his things behind. Everyone around has got a tie belonging to Christopher Plummer somewhere. And when I came to Toronto here and stayed at the old, now called the Sussex House, and in those days was called something else, he had a room there too, and he used to, there was a Chinese laundry right across the street, you know, and I opened his cupboard and there were all these shirts, a great pile of them. What are you doing with these? When did you get them done? He said, no. So I took them all and dumped them in the Chinese laundry to have them done for Christmas. You know, he just didn't care what he wore, what he did, you know, he always had a hangover. There was Melanie's Bar behind CBC there, right? Down in Grenville Street. And that was a very popular place. And Chris used to frequent that quite a bit, and Joy LaFleur would be down there. And, well, I tell you, one of the big painters, Fred Varley, used to go there all the time too. You'd see him wandering down the street and going into Melanie's Bar. Well, there are certain watering holes around any production place, any production center, you know, that actors would find. With Andrew Allen, we used to have Britain's Cafe. That was a coffee spot on Sunday mornings or something for rehearsals. We'd go and have a coffee there. That was down at the corner of Jarvis and College, you know. But
and in Montreal, where would you go out to meet Marie?
Well, no, there was the Britain Cafe down at the bottom, right down on St. Catherine Street. The Britain Cafe, horrible dump. But we used to go in there and have a coffee. And there was Murray's around the corner, across the way, yeah, 5 cents a cup of coffee, you know. And we'd go in there with people like Eleanor Stewart, and we'd sit there and discuss the performances of the plays or who other people were doing, this kind of thing. It was very, very interesting stuff. They were a very, very good group, very tightly knit group, the MRT. A lot of respect for people like Alf Gallagher. He was a staunch person. Ken Cully was another originally English actor, so was Alf Gallagher. Very steady guys, middle-aged then, and they would play good solid roles, you know.